Hi, my name is Michelle, and holy crap, guys! When I discovered who she really was, I couldn't believe it. But after some more research, everything clicked into place. My mother had always been the closest person to me. Now I know what my mother really is: a vampire. Now I understand why we have nothing in common, why she would purposefully start arguments just to get me riled up. Now, I know I say vampire, but I don't mean like a fictional blood-sucking monster. I've read about people like her in articles. She's what's known as an energy vampire. Do you ever meet people who just emotionally and physically drain you to be around? Well, you might want to start taking a closer look. It honestly explains a lot. My mother refuses to let me out of our house. She fought with me all the time and would make me cry frequently. She did a lot of other things besides to ruin my life. She was doing everything she could so she wouldn't lose her energy donor. She's honestly just as gaslighting and manipulative as Mother Gothel. The moment I figured this all out, I immediately moved out to my grandmother's house, where I finally feel safe. At first, my life seemed pretty normal, and if it weren't for these articles, I'd never have discovered the truth. We've never been good friends per se, my mother and I. Still, we would communicate quite well until I grew up a little bit and tried to be more autonomous. I thought that most mothers would be glad to see their child being independent and self-sustaining, but looking back, we weren't really good at communicating at all. I was just good at being obedient and not thinking for myself. Once I started to stand up for myself, a lot of different restrictions appeared in our house. I've always been able to come back home as late as 11 p.m. from the age of 10, and sometimes I even had sleepovers at my friends' houses. And suddenly, my mother decided on a new curfew. Now, at the age of 16, I have to be home no later than 8 p.m. I can't even go to any parties or sleepovers or other friends' houses just to hang out. I mean, I guess technically I can sleep over at a friend's house, but only if my mother calls my friend's parents every hour. She says she just wants to make sure I'm where I'm supposed to be, because she's choosing not to trust me. What have I ever done to make her feel like she has to hover over me like this? You know, my friend stopped hanging out with me after her insane helicoptering. Ugh, damn it! I want to hang out with boys, talk to people, go to parties, pull all-nighters, studying with friends. I want to figure out who I am and who I want to become, but I can't grow, experiment, or explore if I'm being stifled all the time. All I hear these days is no! My mother, dearest, is a lawyer, a very successful one at that. She's a woman of unwavering principle. If she takes the case, there's no point in even going against her. Sometimes she even takes part in prosecution processes when she's sure that the person is guilty. My mom isn't loved by her coworkers, but she is respected, and people are afraid of her. That's the kind of person I have to deal with: strict, unmoving, and consumed by her work. I just want to be free. I tried to escape through the window of my room once, but I'm sure you can guess how well that went for me. I didn't even manage to leave the house, and she had already caught me and started to yell loudly. Then she locked me in my room for an indefinite period of time. All of my friends had to be carefully verified by my mother. She had to know everything about a person I wanted to hang out with, from their favorite color to their thoughts about the government. Obviously, that didn't help me to make any new friends. The test was just such an ordeal, no one wanted to hang out with me again. All this insane control boiled over more than once. We fought often, and it could get heated. Broken dishes, screaming voices, and lots of tears. My mom even nearly hit me once. She stopped at the very last second, but I'll always remember her face as she swung at me. I'll never feel safe next to her again. We stopped talking. We could only scream now. I tried to find a part-time job, to save up, move out, and protect myself, but she prevented that too. She has complete control over me since I'm not 18 yet. At some point, I found myself shaking hands with the school's therapist, but as soon as I stood before their office, I froze. What was even the point? She won't change, and the school counselor will probably just tell her everything anyway, so I turned my back and left. And not long later is when I found the article in a newspaper. Someone forgot it on a park bench near our house. At first, I just moved it away because I wasn't used to reading those kinds of papers full of paranormal things like aliens and monsters. Anytime we got material like that in the mail, my mother just burned it in our fireplace, saying that trash was too good for garbage like that. I was waiting for my friend to come, but she was late. I wasn't allowed a phone, so I didn't know where she was. After 15 minutes, I got bored and started to read. At first, I just laughed at all the green aliens plastered all over the front page, but then the article about energy vampires caught my eye. They feed on human emotions in order to live longer, to be healthy and successful. The longer I read the text, the more it made sense to me. I was comparing my mother to these crazy vampires, and holy crap, guys, these kinds of coincidences shouldn't be scoffed at. My mother loves gossip and is extremely competitive. She'll do anything in her power to win and step on her opponents. That's why she became a lawyer. Energy vampires' favorite emotion to feed off of are grief and despair. Coincidence? After every fight, I would feel awful and exhausted, but my mother, on the other hand, looked happy and perky, almost as if she was well fed. All my secrets and shortcomings were used against me, all my words thrown back at me. Living with her was a nightmare, and I had to get away. I forgot about my friend and ran home. There, I called my grandmother and begged her to please let me move in with her. I took the paper with me as proof. My granny agreed to let me stay. She also read the article and began to worry about her own safety as well. Together, we fought against my mother and even managed to get a partial emancipation for me, which is just a big word to say that in some ways I would legally be considered an adult. I still can't vote, but I can get a job without my mother's signature at the very least, and she doesn't have full control over me. I'm mostly fine now. Still, I don't want to see my mother. I changed schools and now go to one much closer to my house. I've even made new friends. I even have a boyfriend. From now on, I'm going to live an ordinary teenage life, and I'm going to do it my way. No longer do I have to feel afraid. I don't have to give my life or energy to that hollow, emotionless, soul-sucking vampire I call my mother.
My name is Laura, and I'm Michelle's mother. Something insane is going on in our family. I can't understand how my smart and educated daughter ended up here. I don't deny that I'm a rather strict parent. My profession requires me to be aware all the time. I've seen enough criminals who only pretend to be kind, so my behavior can't surprise you. I had some requirements for my daughter as well, but I've always thought that we understood each other. I was so proud that my girl is so smart and responsible, not like other children. Michelle learned how to read and write at a young age. She liked to read books and was obedient. Also, she has always chosen friends which were as good and smart as she. Then this awful puberty began, and I immediately got everything that other parents already had and even more. My daughter stopped listening to me, not to speak about obedience. All of my words she takes as a personal offense now, and she's acting against me all the time. I've asked Michelle to wear a hat because it was freezing outside, and she defiantly left me at home and froze her ears. I reminded her to do her homework because she had a test the next day, and she just threw away her textbooks. She came back from school with F's, and that's how it was about everything. Her cultured company of friends changed to something awful. She began to hang out with hooligans. Some of them had tattoos like real criminals. They were only 16, but they already drink. And maybe not only drink and fight. Some girl even got pregnant. Overall, I was not ready to let my girl hang out with such people. Michelle wants to think that she's an adult, but she isn't. And she doesn't understand a lot of things because of her stubbornness and a strong desire to do everything against me. I tried to reach an agreement and find a compromise. I did everything that could make Michelle turn on her brains, or at least her self-preservation instinct. It should be somewhere deep inside of her mind, right? Something which is telling her that she can't just get on a stranger's motorbike and drive somewhere else, almost the speed of light. It's a terrible idea. Nothing helped. I just became Michelle's #1 enemy, who infringes her rights. Michelle started to see me as a petty tyrant, so I decided to become one. I became a real tyrant. I defiantly locked my daughter at home, in her room, for her not to hang out with those awful people. I defiantly verified all of her friends in the police base, and I did it pretty loud for everyone to hear me. I set the bars on her windows. I followed, checked, and controlled her. It helped for some time. Michelle calmed down and started thinking a little bit more about her choices, and all her unreliable friends got lost. That was quite obvious because they didn't want to be friends with a girl who had such a crazy mother. Then, this happened. What is all that energy? Vampirism? I went through nursing courses, and I've never heard about such things before. Where did Michelle discover that information? The most important is that she was able to convince my mother. Then, Michelle moved to her place as though for her own safety. And now, all I can do is to watch how my daughter is coming back to her old company with those awful people. She's doing all those things that she shouldn't do, and I can't influence the situation. My mother forbade me to appear in front of her house. I worry so much about Michelle, and I hope she would grow up before she makes some terrible mistakes which will ruin her life. Please do write in the comments your thoughts about this story and its characters. Like the video, share it with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe to not miss the next episodes.